Could anybody safely say that this is a peaceful planet right now? Absolutely not. With what's brewing and what's going on, and for most people, they're not interested in one more war, let alone the probably 85 different wars that the United States is involved with in different parts of the world in their peacekeeping efforts. But I think what people have to understand, Joe, is this, and this is what's critical. When you're talking about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, you've got the entire planet being dealt with in everything that pertains to life. Now, I want to give you an exact quote that Sue just sent to me. Thank you, Sue. She said this, and it's a quoting from the esoteric agenda of the United Nations. It says, at the 1997 Women's World Conference in Beijing, the head of the UN Food Program said, we will use a food as a weapon against the people. According to the World Health Organization, epidemiological projection is estimated that according to the vitamin and mineral guidelines alone in the Codex Alimentarius, now listen to this, that when they implement it, it will result in a minimum of 3 billion deaths. 1 billion deaths due to starvation, and the next 2 billion will die from preventable diseases due to malnutrition. What I've been trying to get across to people is the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and hurt not the oil and the wine, okay? Well, the point is that you're talking about a third of the life in the sea dying, a third of the grass and trees dying. You're talking about a third, and right now a third of the world's population is about 2.3 billion. And so you're looking at the most devastating series of events to ever hit the planet. Now, malnutrition, let's talk about malnutrition. Why in the world are the genetically modified organisms that are being produced by the biotechnology companies, what are they so deathly afraid of when it comes to disclosure, okay? And I'll give you a word. Everybody needs to know this word, mutagenic, the ability to genetically mutate. In other words, to transform, change, modify, or alter your DNA. And see, this is what's really sad. When the chemtrail spray, and I think it was Carnicom, cliffcarnicom.com, and Carnicom is C-A-R-N-I-C-O-M, Cliff Carnicom, and it's just carnicom.com. He's the guy that did the most extensive chemtrail analysis, but they were finding human blood and other blood with what are called genetic binders in the chemtrail spray also. So when I asked a certain general about that, and ladies and gentlemen, I was in privileged by the Lord. The Lord literally, Jesus told me 40 years ago, if I would be faithful, He would bring the people that know to tell me what's going on. I can't know what I know unless someone tells me. And whether you want to believe it or not, that's your obligation as a Christian to take it to the Lord. I've never said, believe me because, quote, whoever I am or whatever I think you should believe me for. I said, here's the information. I'm a watchman. I have to sound the alarm. I have to warn people. And the bottom line is that the mutagenic nature of the genetically modified food is changing the human genome. And that's why Jesus said, if the days weren't short and there'd be no flesh left alive. That literally means there would be no descendants of Adam because the devil is doing his best to make God's promises to none effect. And the only thing that works better than the devil is unbelief, who he is the author of. And the Bible even says that you know, the Word of God is made none effect through unbelief. So the thing is, I don't know how the whole transformational process is going to be playing out, but when you've got the United Nations, oh, by the way, isn't it interesting? The same people that are telling you we're going to whack 3 billion of you, oh, I take that back. According to their numbers, the UN has put out dozens of reports calling for an 80% reduction in population. Who the hell do they think they are to take away your gun? You know why they want to take away your gun? Because it's the only thing that stands between you and death. And I want every gun owner to finally figure it out. It's not enough to have them in the safe. It's not enough to, you know, you're going to have to decide what side of the fence you're on, and you better understand, they know about your guns. They are coming not for your guns. They're coming for you. You can say, well, gee, I lost them in the canoe trip. Bang. You get it in the head either way.
So your best opportunity is to recognize this. The people that are telling you they're going to kill you, they're mocking you in all the movies. They're telling you they're tracking you. They're telling you they're listening to your conversation. They're telling you they're going to do this. And, Doug, I just sent you an email on a new machine that can tell you what you ate. It's a new laser machine. I don't know if you've seen your email yet, but it's a pretty telling, what would I say, a piece of machinery. And let me just read the title of it. And this is what people don't understand. Homeland Security buys Big Brother laser scanner that can tell if you are high, what you are carrying, and even what you had for breakfast from 50 meters away.
Yeah, that's incredible. I haven't gotten that yet, but just the thought of that. I mean, okay. Wow.
Here's the thing, okay? Our time is limited. By the grace of God, we've got another night. But let's stick to the food issue, okay? Nutrition is everything. I think that those of you who think you're going into a FEMA camp to be fed MREs and bottled water and you get out of there when, everything settles down, those are not prison camps. They're termination camps. This is why get over the idea that, the military will do whatever they're ordered to do. End of story. There will be exceptions to that, but they'll follow orders. It doesn't stand up in Geneva Convention. It doesn't stand up in war crimes trials that will come, and it certainly won't spare them before the great white throne judgment when God says to those who murdered their fellow citizens, "Depart from me, ye who work iniquity, into everlasting damnation." I'm literally praying for those people that are getting ready to they're just, spitting on their front sight, readying their sights to drop on me and others. I pray literally that they have such an encounter with God that God opens up the literal portals of hell and lets them see their place in hell unless they repent. Because, look, my Bible says, "Ask of me," meaning the Lord, making this request, "and I will show you great and mighty things ye know not of." So it doesn't tell me, I know I can't change the world's outcome, but I can certainly change the outcome for a lot of people in eternity, and that's what people don't. They don't fear God. When men don't fear God, they embrace sin. When they embrace sin, it destroys them. And the fear of the Lord is to hate evil. I got news for you. The modern day church has embraced evil to the point there is no fear of God, and without fear of God, men will not depart from evil. They will be overwhelmed, overcome, and they will totally succumb to it. And then watch out, because each man's sword will be against his neighbor.
Okay, Steve, now you mentioned something here about the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty, which I've written about, I've looked at. First of all, what bothers me, number one, these negotiations are being held behind closed doors. Essentially, the treaty itself, kind of like the health care bill, it was all done behind closed doors, and then bang, you have to vote on it to see what's in it. I mean, that's what's taking place right now. Secondly, everyone says the United States is going to ratify. There's 152 nations that signed on to this treaty. But from that point, Steve, okay, we sign on. We're a signatory. And I get the same emails you do. People saying, well, you need two-thirds of the Senate to ratify it and all this bunk, which, since when has the law, Constitution really applied to this administration? Or basically how many administrations? It hasn't. So there are end arounds to this. But what I want to ask you, Steve, is this. Let's say, bang, we become a signatory to the Small Arms Trade Treaty. Bang. Okay, there we go. There's a lot of room, a lot of space between that day and the day when we get a knock on the door or when we're told to turn in our firearms or whatever. How do you see, or do you know how they're going to attempt to, or because we know a lot of guns are not registered. Okay, a lot of long guns are not registered. Even some handguns are not registered. But
Doug, and that's not the focus of the issue with them. The bottom line is that, again, understand, under a declaration of martial law, they have the right to go house to house. They intend to do that. People say, there are too many houses in America. Not for 420,000 NATO troops pre-positioned in this country, and with all the yellow sheets having been put into a database. Look, it's not tough to do it. They've already got their assigned targets. And for high-value targets, which, radio talk show hosts are probably considered one, we don't get the low-tech, we get the high-tech, okay?
Right. Look, I expect that to happen, but now, from that, do you see, okay, obviously, this is going to be a massive operation, I would suspect, but do you see, Steve, people then taken to the streets and attempting to fight back? Or, I mean, is that how...
Absolutely, people will fight back. They're counting on them.
Okay.
They're counting on it,
Well, how
again, look...
out?
Yeah, look, when David was confronted with his wife and their families being taken captive, what did he do? He took his men and went out and slew the bad guys. One of the things that I'm seeing is the pacifism, the spirit of pacifism is so great. And Vic just sent me an email saying, Steve, remind them that God allows us to defend ourselves and our families against all enemies. And he does. The thing is that there's such a lay down and die mentality. By the way, an interesting thing happened. In the churches across America on Sunday, they were almost preaching the same sermon, a total, how should I say this, a reinvention of Romans 13. And the sermons went like this: the government is good. All those who speak evil of the government are bad. When the government tells you to go into the prison camps or to go here or there, it's for your best interest, and your duty before God is to obey the men that God has placed in the government over you. Now, that is such a distortion of truth, because if God told you to commit suicide by going into a prison camp, then he could not judge you for for taking your own life. And I'm telling you, taking your own life is not the answer. It is not God's way. God is a miraculous God. But see, Doug, here's the thing. It's going to get so bad, and I've interviewed talk radio after 20 years and 9,000 broadcast hours. I've interviewed gang members. I've interviewed really nasty people. And can I tell you something? They just shake their head and laugh. They don't care whether it's the Russians or the UN troops. They said, look, we're just going to kill everybody. And I said, well, I've got news for you. The guys you think are going to be easy aren't going to be easy. And I was told today, I cannot prove this, so if anybody's listening to me in northern Montana, can anybody send me an email or Doug an email and tell us if you've seen the flyers that supposedly are posted all over the Flathead Forest or the area, or if anybody can say, no, that's just a rumor, basically saying do not engage the Russian troops. Can you believe that, Doug?
Oh, I can believe it.
There are posters being put up by somebody saying, don't shoot the Russian troops.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I would not have believed that, but today I can believe that because of, Steve, one thing that, you had said about Russian troops, and of course you had talked about Russian troops in Hawaii. I've gotten a couple of emails verifying, and when I say verifying, I physically... two of the emails were signed with a phone number. I physically picked up the phone and contacted these people and questioned them at length. Yes, there are Russian troops in Hawaii. In fact, they're very distinctive Spetsnaz uniforms. What in the world are they doing in Hawaii? And I've gotten other accounts from other areas of the United States. That said, so the poster like that, of course. I mean, yeah, I can believe it.